and welcome back to GavGoesIn. So, listen, obviously, game yesterday, Real Madrid versus Liverpool. Obviously ending 1-0 to Liverpool through an Alexis McAllister header. I didn't see the first half actually because I was actually doing the watch along for the PSG and Bayern Munich game. Big up to everyone coming through as well for that game. And then obviously that game ran out as Bayern Munich winning 2-1. But I watched the second half of the Liverpool-Real Madrid game because that was more exciting for me. I think once the sending off of Luis Diaz and then obviously Dembele and Hakimi both went off with injuries as well, which will be concerning for them, two of their best players. I wanted to see the Liverpool game against Real Madrid to see if Liverpool, are back on the up. I wanted to see if Real Madrid, again, top of La Liga at the moment, but I wanted to see how they would overcome a Liverpool team, that are more or less under pressure still, I would say. To think that Liverpool now, obviously back-to-back wins in all comps, Aston Villa at home and now Liverpool, and now they go to Man City, which will be a key game for both teams. I think both teams cannot afford to lose that game. Yeah, as I said, man, I think it's one of them things that, for me, Liverpool in that game got over the line. Big up, Gav. How you doing today? Yeah, all good, all good. Obviously, slightly later than I have been doing the streams, but yeah, listen, obviously, we always try and get a stream in, and yeah, no, I appreciate you coming on and supporting the channel as always. And yeah, listen, I just obviously I want to discuss a couple of things, and again, make sure you put your comments and put your questions in, and let me know what you think as well. Because as I said, I ended up watching the second half of the Liverpool versus Real Madrid game, and I was keeping an eye on a few players, to see performances against the bigger teams. I thought if we go on to Real Madrid, actually no, let's go on to Liverpool actually. So from what I see in Liverpool, I'm looking at the defense weren't really troubled too much. I think they were always in control. Van Dijk, obviously, as he does, marshalling his defense. And then you had Konate, I thought was good. Conor Bradley up against Vinicius Jr. I thought Conor Bradley was, I think he had the better of the game in the end. I think he edged the battle between him and Vinicius Jr. And Andy Robertson coming back into the lineup. I think Andy Robertson now, has to be first choice, you would say. I think obviously all the hype around Kirkes coming, and it's quite simple that Kirkes hasn't been the Kirkes that he was at Bournemouth. I thought midfield, Gravenberch, McAllister, and what's his name, Szoboszlai. And Szoboszlai has probably been, as I said yesterday on the watch along, their most consistent player, Liverpool. And I thought again he had a couple of chances to score, but Thibaut Courtois was in good form. And then you look at the front three, Ekatike, didn't really get too much service really. But what I like about Ekatike is Ekatike's general play, is of a very high level. And I thought when he got the ball, he kept the ball, and he was linking the play well, so I liked his game. Obviously he did come off. Florian Wirtz out on that left-hand side. Again, Wirtz is not playing to the level that, I've seen him play in the past. I think the best you can say about his game yesterday is that he contributed to a win for Liverpool. He did work hard. When he got the ball, he did use it well. But that isn't the Florian Wirtz that I remember. And again, it's going to take an adaptation period for him to get to grips with the Premier League. But I do still believe, again, I'm a Man United fan, but I've got no shame in saying that I do believe that Wirtz will come good. I said he's still one of my favourite players, but I do believe he will definitely come good eventually. And then Mo Salah out on that right-hand side. For me, Salah was very, very, very selfish yesterday in that game. I thought he was very selfish. And this is what happens when you have players that are under pressure. When you're under pressure, you usually revert to type. and then just try and do it all on your own. There was a couple of times where Salah should have played the ball. I think there was one time he should have played it to, I think it might have been Szoboszlai or McAllister, and he tried to go for the shot. But again, if you guys haven't seen my stream the other day, I did mention Yankuba Minte of Brighton should be the eventual successor to Salah. So maybe Salah's feeling the pressure, who knows? But definitely, man, he was selfish in yesterday's game. And I think on the whole, Liverpool won the game, and that's what they'll be relieved at, really, And again, it just shows you how football can change, because 1 minute, you're on the end of losing 4 or 5 games in a row in all comps, and then now they've got back-to-back wins, and now everything's looking good for them. So yeah, one of them things. Going on to Real Madrid, and I wanna focus more on the midfield and the attack, because I said this yesterday on the watch along. The fact that Rodrigo, for me, Rodrigo's the most talented forward out of Barca's 3, out of Vinicius Jr. and Mbappe. And the fact that Rodrigo, you can tell Rodrigo's lost confidence. He's lost belief. He's changed his boots as well. So, that's something as well. But I'm looking at Rodrigo now, and Rodrigo, for his own career, has to leave Real Madrid, because you can just tell that something's not right there. He's gone from being a main starter under Ancelotti to now being, just a backup dancer, really. And that's what's happened with Real Madrid. You think of Arda Güler, who I'm a massive fan of. Güler's now in the team. Mastantuano's been playing. Again, Vinicius Jr. and Mbappe are going to play anyway. So Rodrigo now has become surplus to requirements. And I think Rodrigo, for me, even when he come on yesterday, he just looked out of sorts, you know what I mean? And you know what? He looked like he's put on a bit of weight as well, Rodrigo. He looked like he put on a bit of weight, man. So yeah, I think definitely, man, he's someone for me that does need to move on. Again, January is going to be very difficult, but I think there's a few teams that should be testing the waters for Rodrigo, because for me, I saw yesterday why he needs to leave. Vinicius Jr. again, guys, I did say this, putting the Barcelona game to the side, I think when Real Madrid play against the better teams, whether it's in the Champions League, La Liga is a bit different, but definitely in the Champions League, I don't see them getting over the line when Vinicius Jr. and Mbappe both play together, because you've got 2 players there, as I keep saying. There's 2 players there that are superstars in their own right, and both of them want to be the guy. Vinicius Jr. was the guy before Mbappe came, but it's clearly Mbappe's team now, you can say. So again, Vinicius Jr. for me, he isn't the same player for me, and I definitely think he has to move on for, again, just like Rodrigo, for the sake of their careers, man. Because as long as Mbappe's there, Mbappe's going to be the main guy, man. And you've got 2 players in Rodrigo and Vinicius that, in a sense, were carrying the attack before Mbappe came, and he's just come in now. And those 2, you would say Rodrigo for me more than Vinicius, because Vinicius does get game time, but they're more surplus to requirements. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's one of them things, man. Can I ask a question? Go ahead, man. Ask away. Ask away. Ask away. Where are you from? From the UK. From the UK, man. Hey, which team is better this season, Arsenal or Bayern? I'd have to say Bayern Munich for me, definitely. I mean, people will probably say Arsenal because of their defensive record, but Arsenal for me haven't been great. You know what I mean? They haven't been great by any stretch of the imagination, but their defense has been solid. And again, when we're saying the defense has been solid, we shouldn't really be surprised, because Arsenal's team is set up to be defensive. You know what I mean? So there isn't really no surprise why, their defense is looking the way it is. I believe they've got 8 clean sheets in a row, apparently, something like that. But again, I don't know why we're surprised because their team is set up to be defensive, and as I said, man, I think it's one of them things where there's a long way ahead, and we're gonna see if this defense can still hold out. Let's see. Um, yeah, big up, man. So yeah, just going back onto Real Madrid before we go into the main talking point from what you guys can see on the title. Mbappe for me was probably their best attacker. I would say. I think in terms of threatening, in terms of getting on the ball and making something happen, he was the most likely one to do that, Mbappe. And but again, I think him up against Kanate and Van Dijk was always going to be a test because you got Kanate who can compete with Mbappe for pace, and then you've got Van Dijk who is obviously Van Dijk's Van Dijk, you know what I mean? But so it's always going to be difficult for Mbappe. But I think Mbappe was definitely Real Madrid's best their best attacker in that sense. And then you look at Arda Güler, Arda Güler for me, the fact that he's playing is good because he's a top player. And, he was someone for me that, he's someone that's always going to come off as well because there's players in Real Madrid that, whether it's PR, whether it's favoritism, who knows, yeah? There's certain players that will just play. And it means the likes of Arda Güler, Eduardo Camavinga, who also came off, those guys are always going to be the fall guys, really. But what I want to talk about is obviously what the title says, Jude Bellingham and Trent Alexander-Arnold, And for me, it's crazy because you've got two players, and by the way, just so you guys know where I stand, I don't really rate either player. I don't. I think Trent in terms of his ability and his quality, I rate his quality, and I think as an actual right back, some people will say he's actually defined the right back role, which I think is a load of nonsense. I think, again, if anyone that's not aware, Trent is actually a midfielder by trade, and obviously plays as a fullback. So I think Trent, to be honest with you, is in terms of quality, he's got quality. There's no doubt about that. But as a right back in a tournament, where you need your right back to be, good defensively and attacking wise, he isn't that. And then you've got Jude Bellingham for me, and we're going to get into the Bellingham chat in a minute. Jude Bellingham for me has to be one of the most overrated players that I've seen play for England, and this is why I'm saying, do these two players make England's World Cup squad? And again, if you guys have a different of opinion, then put that in the comments. Let's see what you got to say. But for me, as it stands right now, and if I was the England manager, I don't pick either player. And there's good reason for me not to pick either player because, as I said, I think they're two of the most overrated players in football right now. You look at Trent, for instance, him going to Real Madrid. Him going to Real Madrid was possibly, I would say was possibly, for his career to have Real Madrid on his CV, you'd probably look at it and say, you know what, that's a good move. But if we're looking at it for playing time, I know Carvajal's out injured at the moment, and for what Real Madrid need for me in that position, it was probably a wrong decision in my opinion, because I think the fact that obviously he was injured and now Carvajal's out injured, you probably will see him get more game time. But let's not forget, you got Valverde that can play right back as well, because obviously when they've got the midfielders like Camavinga and Tchouaméni, you can afford to play Valverde at right back. So again, you've got two players there definitely in Trent. He's gone from first choice right back. People talking about him being one of the best right backs in Europe, to now, being resulted to a bench option. And if I'm looking at Trent for England, Reece James is ahead of him by an absolute country mile for me, because not only does Reece James have the qualities that Trent can possess, Reece James is a much better defender. And the only thing that Reece James needs to do is stay fit. And for me, if a fit Reece James is the best right back in Europe for me. I look at him and I look at Hakimi. I think those two are the best right backs in the world. But I'd have Reece James ahead of Hakimi because I think Reece James is that good. So you think of Trent battling Reece James for a spot at right back. Reece James is ahead of him in that respect. You look at Jed Spence. I like Jed Spence. Again, he's someone that can play left back as well. I think defensively, Jed Spence is better than Trent. Going forward, you can probably say Trent with his ability to cross, ability from set pieces and his delivery, you can say. I look at, Livramento is another one. Obviously, he's out injured, but he's a bit more of he can play left back as well. Attacking wise, defensive wise. I think overall, you'd probably have him ahead of Trent as well. Who's the other right backs they got in England? I swear there's someone else. So you got Reece James, you got Jed Spence. Konza can play right back, and this is why Konza definitely goes, because Konza's a centre back, and to be honest with you, he's one of England's best centre backs for me as well. But he's someone that, if you want a player to do a job on, let's say, one of the other country's best left wingers, then this is where I think Thomas Tuchel is going to play Konsa, because defensively, Konsa can lock down any left winger that a different country has to offer. So Konsa for me is definitely going to go if he stays fit. So in that sense, when you've got Konsa that can play right back, Reece James is the first choice right back, and then you've got the likes of Jed Spence, Livramento that can cover both sides. There's no place for Trent. There ain't no place for him in the World Cup squad if we're actually being serious. And I think there's many people that probably don't want to admit that, but the facts are there ain't no space for Trent in that England team. You wouldn't play him in midfield with the options they've got. You look at Elliot Anderson now; he's definitely going to be a shoo-in that squad. Obviously, Declan Rice will be there. You look at Adam Wharton, who should be there. Cobby's not getting game time. You'd have him midfield ahead of Trent. And there's other options as well that probably we haven't even spoken about. So for me, Trent definitely doesn't go to the World Cup. I'd argue with anyone that tells me that he'll get a place in the squad. And I think the only way Trent would be in the squad, very much like Bellingham, is because of PR and the fact that they're at Real Madrid. Because if we're being honest and being logic, if everyone stays fit, how could you justify bringing Trent really? Because you're only really gonna bring Trent because you think he can put a good ball into the box. But the reality is, if you've got Reece James for that, and then you've got Spence and Livramento that can cover both sides, and then Konza can play right back, what use is there for Trent Alexander-Arnold? And that's the truth. But again, many people probably don't want to admit that, but it's the actual truth for me. And this is why I think, if Trent can play regularly for Real Madrid at right back, and Real Madrid do well this season and he's instrumental, again, there'll be a conversation. But if we're just basing it on what a squad needs, because the only thing really that Trent is going to bring to this England squad, you would say, is his delivery. But you're getting his delivery from Reece James. So what is the use for Trent, really, when you think about it? And then moving on to Jude Bellingham. Now, this Jude Bellingham conundrum is good. And it's going to be interesting to see what Tuchel does. Because you've got a player there, in terms of PR for an England player, he's got the biggest PR. Like, he's got one of the biggest PRs that I've seen for any England player. Because the way that Bellingham's been marketed, the fact that he's at Real Madrid, and he's at Real Madrid really because I'm not saying he's there because of his quality. People will say his mentality, which, again, is a load of nonsense. But I think he's personally there, Jude Bellingham, because of his PR. Because when I watch Real Madrid play, and the years that I've seen, the amount of years that I've seen football, and the amount of times I've seen Real Madrid play, to think that they've got Jude Bellingham in the hub of their midfield just makes me laugh, really, because it's like I'm used to seeing players like Guti. I'm used to seeing players like Zidane, you know, Modric, Tony Cruz. I'm talking about creators, attackers in the central of the pitch. You know, there's more, but I've actually forgot the names. Yeah, I'm used to seeing players like that, and then you see Bellingham, who is nowhere near the ability of those players. And he's just a box crusher at his finest. You know what I mean? He's someone that runs all day, up and down, and as I said, man, that is his key strengths. But to think that he's playing for one of the biggest teams in the world and doesn't possess the qualities that I'm used to seeing from a Real Madrid midfielder, is madness. But again, if we look at the England squad, yeah, the key question is what formation and where do you play, and where is Bellingham likely to play? Because this is what people don't want to admit, yeah, and don't want to talk about. So, but I will. So again, if Tuchel plays a three at the back, let's say, the two in central midfield, you're gonna need to have, just like what I've spoken about with Manchester United, yeah, and how the two in midfield, it requires a different kind of responsibility, which is why Kobe for me is struggling in that position and shouldn't be playing in that position in this system. It's the same thing if Tuchel was to play a three at the back, because the two in midfield, you're going to need to have legs and you're going to need to have discipline, leadership and quality as well. Now, Declan Rice is going to play there because in terms of his leadership, he has been captain for West Ham. In terms of him getting up and down the pitch and possibly saying he is reliable in the sense of holding his position, he'll be in there. For me personally, would I play a midfield two which contains Declan Rice? 50-50, because, Adam Wharton, Elliot Anderson, from what he's shown, for me in a three at the back, you'd have to be considering those two, because both of those players are composed in possession. Both of those players can progress the ball as well. So I'd have those two ahead of Declan Rice for me personally. But we know Declan Rice is going to play because of his experience and the fact that he's playing for top of the table at the moment in Arsenal. So Rice is going to play. So it's who's going to play next to Declan Rice in that midfield if Tuchel plays a two. Now, you can't play Bellingham there. You can't. So, because Bellingham is not disciplined to hold his position next to a Declan Rice. Not to mention, in that position there, you need someone that's going to progress the ball. Declan Rice can be the ball winner, but you need someone that can progress the ball. Now, whether that's going to be Adam Wharton or whether that's going to be Elliot Anderson, both of those players there are more important to England and will provide that job better than a Jude Bellingham. So all of a sudden, if he plays a three at the back and plays two in midfield, Jude Bellingham automatically doesn't fit. He doesn't fit there. So again, where does he fit in at the three at the back? So as we know with the three at the back, if you're playing 2 10s, yeah, you've got the choice of Cole Palmer, Phil Foden. Saka's not a 10, but you can put him there in the conversation as well. You've got on the left side, Eze, Jack Grealish. Again, Anthony Gordon's not a 10. Rashford's not a left 10 either. They're more wing or wide forwards, you would say. But those guys all come into contention. Not to mention Jared Bowen as well. You could even put Madueke in the combo as well. Obviously, they're wingers. But again, so when we're saying the three at the back formation and Jude Bellingham can't fit into one of the two in midfield because Declan Rice will be there, as we know, for the experience. And then next to him, you need a ball progressor. That rules out Jude Bellingham, yeah? Then you think of the tens that I've just said. There's loads more options that will be ahead of him, in my opinion, than Jude Bellingham. So automatically, he doesn't fit in the three at the back. Then you go, if you're going to play a 4-2-3-1 for England. Again, if Declan Rice plays there, you know, or if it's Walton, or if it's Elliot Anderson, can you play Jude Bellingham in a 2 with a number 10 in behind? Again, for me, you can't, because Bellingham hasn't got the discipline to stay in that midfield area and play next to Declan Rice and create a 2 in there. He hasn't got the discipline. So then it means, would you play him in the 10? Again, I've got players. I have players. Again, I forgot 2 other players, guys. Morgan Rogers, Morgan Gibbs-White. Yeah? And this is where they come into contention as well for a number 10. Because you can play Gibbs-White, you can play Morgan Rogers, Cole Palmer, Phil Foden, Eze, Grealish. All these players can play in the 10 above Jude Bellingham. So again, the 4-2-3-1, you know, it's more of a shoehorning kind of thing you're going to do with Jude Bellingham. But the reality is, he doesn't really fit into a 3 at the back, or he doesn't fit into a 4-2-3-1. And if you're going to play him, as I said, in the 2, behind the number 10, he's not disciplined enough to play there. So, again, where does he fit in? Then you go to a 4-3-3. Yeah? I think the most likely formation that he would fit in would probably be the 4-3-3. Because if you've got a defensive midfielder and then you've got 2 box-to-box, again, he can play that role. But again, if we're looking at Declan Rice will play, and then you still need a ball progressor in there, whether it's Walton or whether it's Elliot Anderson. And this is why Elliot Anderson for me is key. And I did say, you know, Elliot Anderson reminds me, I'm not saying he's the same sort of player, but he reminds me of a Steven Gerrard kind of midfielder. And the fact that Elliot Anderson has come from more or less nowhere to being a shoo-in for the England squad. Again, if anyone watched Elliot Anderson at the Under-21 European Championships where England won it, you know, you would have seen that this guy was destined to be in the England squad. And it's very funny how he's been in the England squad from then. But again, he's come from nowhere to kind of make the Bellingham, that Bellingham has to be in the squad. He's come from nowhere to make it seem as if Bellingham's not really required. You know, again, a conversation that many don't really want to talk about, because again, Bellingham's is always at the forefront of the talk. But you look at the 4-3-3, if we're saying an Adam Walton needs to be there to be, you know, the calming influence in terms of progressing the ball, the composure, and then you look at Declan Rice will probably be there. It's like you then now have many options that can play as the other midfielder. Again, you've got Elliot Anderson that can play as the 3rd midfielder. I'm going to mention Kobbie Mainoo. If Kobbie Mainoo can get game time and prove his form and fitness, he becomes into contention. Yeah. Then you've got Eze's shown that he can play in the 3. You know, Phil Foden, right now for Man City, is playing as more of a number 8. So again, you know, a conversation that people don't want to have. How does Jude Bellingham actually fit into this England team? And the same with Trent. The only way that these 2 players, if we're being honest, get into this squad, England squad, is from PR. You know? But going back to what I'm saying, do I believe Bellingham and Trent make the England World Cup squad? I think they do. And again, so it's funny because they make the squad because of what I'm talking about, PR. You know, if Thomas Tuchel has anything about him and he ignores the outside influence, then he won't include either one of them 2 players, because one of them 2 players, you know, I think one of them possibly misses out, and I think Trent misses out more than Bellingham. But if I'm England manager and if Thomas Tuchel has anything about him, why would you include both of them players? And again, let me know why you think both of them should be included based off of what I've said. Let me know in the comments, guys, why you think both of them should be in there. Because I just don't think that there's either player has any merit to be in there, if I'm honest. Because not only have England have a lot of options to choose from, you know, what difference is Jude Bellingham going to make in that midfield to what they've already got? You know, you'd probably say box crashing. But then again, box crashing is just one facet of the game. You know what I mean? So, yeah, what difference is he going to make? No, these are the questions that need to be asked. And the next squad that comes up, you know, for England, I expect Bellingham to be in there because, again, think of the player that replaced Bellingham in the squad. There's no coincidence that it was a similar profile, and this player is actually a better footballer than Bellingham, and that was Ruben Loftus-Cheek. You know, so the next England squad will be interesting to see what Tuchel does because I expect Bellingham to be back in the squad. Not because he deserves to be, but football is very much about PR and popularity. And I think Tuchel, you know, I'd rate Tuchel even more if he just ignores the outside noise and just says, you know what, I want to go a different way, and Bellingham is not in my plans in that sense. But we all know he's gonna call Bellingham up, and again, is Bellingham gonna play, or is he gonna start? These will be the questions because, as I said, Tuchel for me, what's he been playing? He's been playing more of a. Has he been playing more of a four? I haven't really been watching England, but I'm guessing he's playing more of a 4-4-3-3, I believe. You know, I could be wrong. And again, the amount of options he's got, because again, if you look at players that are playing regularly for England right now and playing regularly for their clubs, in the attacking sense of where Bellingham can possibly play, you've got Anthony Gordon, you've got Rashford, you've got Saka, Jared Bowen. Obviously, Palmer's out injured, but Palmer has to start for England for me. Phil Foden, Morgan Rogers, Morgan Gibbs-White. Like all those, Jack Grealish, all those players there I've just mentioned are all playing regular for their clubs. So it's not a case where those guys there are on the bench. These guys all start for their clubs. So again, if you're going to bring a Bellingham back and play him ahead of them, it's only going to be due to, as I said, popularity and PR. Because for me, there's no way that he starts ahead of any of them. And then again, you look at central midfield, Declan Rice, Elliot Anderson, Adam Wharton, they're all playing for their clubs. You know, and again, if you look at central midfield, that's an area, you know, where England are light. You know, you think of Jordan Henderson. Jordan Henderson's there for his experience, you know. But England are very light in midfield. You know, Kobe Mino needs to get back in there, but he's not playing for Manchester United. And really, there ain't really no one else. You know, as I said, Loftus-Cheek was in the squad, but he didn't really get any game time. So, yeah, listen, man, it's crazy. And so Bellingham should be included, even if just a squad player. He can change a game like he did against Slovakia. But this is the question that I would ask, yeah? When you're saying Bellingham can change a game, what can he do to change a game? This is what I want to know, because I think a lot of things that are said are just comments. And again, I'm not picking on no one in particular, but when we're saying he can change a game, any player can change a game. So what qualities does he possess that he can change a game that the other players that will be there can't change a game? These are the questions that need to be asked, because if we're looking at in possession, is he better on the ball than Cole Palmer? No. Is he better on the ball than Phil Foden? No. Is he better on the ball than Loftus-Cheek? No. Morgan Rogers? No. Gibbs-White? No. Eze? No. Grealish? No. So again, in the attacking sense, he's not better on the ball than any of them. And this is why I said earlier, the only thing that people could probably say that Bellingham might offer that some of the other midfielders won't is box crashing. But again, that's just one facet of the game that, you know, would you really want to include a player because he's a box crasher? This is what I'm trying to say to you. So yeah, let me know what you think he changes, because I think it's just sometimes people just say comments and it's not really saying anything, because any player can change the game. It depends what kind of phase the game is in. If the game requires, I don't know, a bit of pace from the bench, you can bring on someone that's got pace to change the game. So again, what does Bellingham possess that other players where he plays? What does he possess that he'll be the difference maker? The only thing people will say why Bellingham should be in the squad is because he's at Real Madrid. That is the only reason. Because if Bellingham was still playing for Birmingham City, you're not saying that Bellingham should be in the squad. This is the point. And don't look at it at the fact that he's at Real Madrid, he deserves to be there, or he has the right to be there because of his ability. PR has played its part. PR's definitely played its part. So yeah, for me, he definitely doesn't go. But he's in contention because, as I said, he's in contention because of PR. Like, I think if we're being honest, everyone should really agree with that. So he's an elite player this season. He's carrying an injury, but coming back to full fitness. I'm not saying he's the best we got. I think Palmer is. I'd rather Bellingham in the team than Rashford. But again, Rashford and Bellingham don't play the same positions. Rashford plays as a left winger. Bellingham's been playing centrally. So we can't compare Rashford and Bellingham. And then when we're saying he's an elite player, what is he an elite player at? This what I'm trying to say to you. Like, when people say he's an elite player or he should be playing, name me what he's elite at, and then we can discuss. Because the facts are, it's just words. Like, if you was to ask me why I think a player is an elite player, I can tell you why he's elite. But when we're saying Bellingham's an elite player, what's he elite at doing? This is the question. What is he elite at doing? Because it's just words. It's just words. So again, yeah, we can't really compare Rashford and Bellingham because they both play different positions. Bellingham can't play as a left winger better than Rashford. Rashford will be in the squad because if you're looking at the way that England play, where they have pace on the flanks, the only two players that are in contention for that position right now is Anthony Gordon and Rashford, because they both got pace. With me, I'll definitely have a different kind of player out there. I'd love a Jadon Sancho to be out there because he's a ball player. But Tuchel wants to play with pace out there, which is why Rashford and Gordon are in contention. So again, we both disagree with each other's opinions on this. Doesn't make you or me right, bro. But that isn't the argument. I didn't say you can disagree with my opinion. I've never said that. But what you're doing is that you're saying generic things like he's elite, or that he's better than Rashford, but you haven't come out with why you think he's elite. You're just saying he has to play based off of what? This is the question. This is the argument. I don't need you to agree with me because I'm bringing facts to the table. But when you're saying that he has to play or he's an elite player, you haven't told me why he's elite. All you're doing is using words. You know what I mean? And that's the problem. This is what people do. Like, you can't just use words and think that's enough, because it leaves your opinions or your comments up for criticism, really, because What's he elite at doing? Again, Bellingham has to play. Guys, tell me why he has to play. This is what I want to know. Again, it's not about my opinion being better than yours, but bring some facts to me. Why does he have to play? Based off of what I've said, why does he have to play? Because I've just already told you, if you're looking at a 4-3-3, or 4-2-3-1, or 3 at the back, where he has to play as a 2 in midfield, he doesn't really fit into any position. So tell me why he has to play other than PR. You know what I mean? Man United supporter. Again, Sancho and Gordon over Bellingham, no way, bro. But again, you're not understanding. You're not understanding what I've said there. Like Bellingham, it doesn't play in the same positions as Sancho and Gordon. Like again, like I'm gonna explain it one more time, just so you understand. In Thomas Tuchel's system, yeah, Rashford and Gordon play as left wingers. Bellingham doesn't play as a left winger. And if he was to play Bellingham as a left winger, it wouldn't work. And he wouldn't do that anyway, because he looks at Rashford and Gordon, you know, as the options with the pace and to get goals. So again, you can't talk about Gordon and Bellingham. I mentioned Sancho because where Sancho would probably play for England if he was selected, you know, again, he wouldn't select Sancho because Sancho hasn't got the pace of Rashford and Anthony Gordon, which is what I'm trying to talk about. So no one's saying Sancho and Gordon over Bellingham. Like, I think you're interpreting in that way. But no one's mentioned Sancho and Gordon over Bellingham. They don't even play the same positions. So, yeah. Okay, so now we're getting somewhere. So Bellingham is elite at crashing the box with Kane being able to drop to Cam. They can rotate and Jude can play shadow striker. He should absolutely start. But again, at least we've got somewhere with what we're talking about. So this is what I said. Box crashing is one facet of the game. Yeah, you can't seriously think it's a good idea to bring a player because he can only box crash. Yeah, not to mention, for me, if Harry Kane's normal game is to drop deep, which means you do need someone that can run beyond him. The problem I think with Harry Kane for this tournament is that Harry Kane, for me, needs to be playing as the lone striker, as the target man striker. You know, and if that happens, you then have a different kind of number 10. You know, you might have a Cole Palmer in there and Eze in there. You know, but if you're saying Bellingham has to absolutely start because he's a box crasher, that just tells you the problems there and then. So you're playing him because he's a box crasher, which is funny, really, because whereas football gone, yeah, where a player plays because he's a box crasher. Crazy. So, but at least Shaquille Khan, at least you've given me your opinion as to why you think he should play, even though I massively disagree with it, but it shows you how football's gone, really. If Bellingham's playing because he's a box crasher and you're going to play him instead of, what, Cole Palmer, instead of Eze, instead of Rodgers, even a Foden, you know, a Grealish, you're going to play him because he's a box crasher. That's the problem. So, bro, and again, you know what it is now, yeah? I enjoy debates because what I would say, yeah, and people are free to their opinions, yeah? But what you get a lot of, especially from what I've seen, definitely on YouTube, is that you get a lot of people that just come on and they just say generic stuff or don't have nothing to back it up. And then when you try to debate their opinion, what they start doing is getting personal because they've lost, really. And again, when it comes to football talk, yeah, I'm not saying that my opinion's always right, yeah? But I know football and, you know, unfortunately, you know, if you, like, when you come and talk about football to me, like, I can see through the holes in what you're saying, you know? So Alex Murphy has just said, bro, your opinion is as irrelevant as, so, I mean, he can't even construct a sentence together. So, Bro, your opinion is as irrelevant as our opinion. You a YouTuber, not a manager. Chill out and let's debate. Okay. So let's break down what you've said. Okay. So first of all, you've got spelling mistakes in there. Yeah. So that's the first. Also, not spelling mistakes. You've got grammar mistakes. That's the first thing. So at least construct a sentence before you come on there and talk nonsense. Yeah. Secondly, yeah, you know nothing about my background in football. You know nothing. You know, when I'm coming out with stuff, I don't just talk for the sake of it. I can construct what I'm talking about. Yeah. You've come on there and you've said Bellingham's an elite player. If you think Bellingham is an elite player, that is your opinion. But at least explain why you think he's an elite player, because you're just talking for the sake of it. That's what it comes out with. You've then said Gordon and Sancho ahead of Bellingham, even though no one said that for a start, and even though they played different positions. So again, you're just coming on there, just talking nonsense because you just want to be proven right. But the facts are you haven't really explained anything. You know what I mean? And I am chilled out. I'm having a debate with you, and obviously you've lost the debate because you can't explain what you're talking about. You know, at least with Shaquille, he said why he thinks Benham's an elite player, even though I don't agree with it. But at least he's explained why he thinks an elite player. You haven't done that yet, so it is what it is, man. So the team should be 4-3-3. Pickford, Skelly, Guehi, Konsa, James, Rice, Mainu, Bellingham, Gordon, Rashford, Palmer. Again, I disagree with that, but that's your opinion. You know, I would have, I think Guehi and Konsa definitely. You know, I like John Stones, but I think Guehi and Konsa as a combination is good. Reece James, 100%. Left back, I think because there's a shortage of left backs, you probably would say Skelly. But I don't know if Skelly starts, personally. But Rice, Mainu, Bellingham, for me, Kobe Mainu for me would definitely play, but Kobe Mainu's got to prove that Kobe Mainu needs game time. So I'm not going to say Kobe yet as it stands, but I will definitely have Kobe as part of it. But he's just got to be playing regularly for me to even consider that. Declan Rice, you'd probably play because of his energy. I understand that. Bellingham wouldn't play for me because I'd have Elliot Anderson. I'd have Elliot Anderson ahead of him. I'd have Adam Wharton definitely ahead of him. Kobe Mainu, if he gets game time, ahead of him. You know, in the 10s, I've mentioned already. You know, Cole Palmer, Eze, Gibbs White, Rodgers, Grealish. You know, loads of players ahead of him there. And then you're missing out a player. Oh, no, so you're saying Gordon, Rashford, Palmer. So you play Rashford through the middle, Gordon on the left, Palmer on the right. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't play that team. But again, it's your opinion. I disagree with it, but yeah, it's mad. But I would definitely not play that team. So Bellingham is such a complete player. Fire and ice intensity. Raf-like striker with box smashing ability. He can press intensely and win duels and first balls. I'm sorry, I had to laugh here because I had to laugh, and I'll tell you why I'm laughing, yeah, is because all of these things that have been mentioned are nothing to do with football, really. It's nothing to do with football. So these are all passion quotes, and this I'm trying to say to you, yeah. Bellingham has done a very good job of convincing the average fan, yeah, based off of passion. Because when I'm hearing he's a complete player, yeah, okay, first and foremost, what is he a complete player at doing? Because you haven't mentioned anything from a technical aspect. You've just said he has fire and ice intensity, which is just words. Again, it's just words, yeah? Raf-like striker. Well, he's not a striker, so I don't know what that means. Box smashing ability. I think you meant box crashing, which we've spoke about already, which is just one facet of the game. He can press intensely, but there's loads of players that can press. And he wins duels and first balls. What does that mean? Like, I mean, yeah, like again, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but yeah, it's very. I think we're just nitpicking here at certain things, man. So big up Fitz, big up my guy. So he's our second best player after Mainu. Who is? Who's our second best player after Mainu? Rashford has to be our 9. I want ultimate pace up front in this next World Cup. So again, so if you think pace is going to be the defining factor in why England would go all the way, again, man, it's very low level opinions, really. Again, you're entitled to your opinion. The way you see football is how you see it. But to be fair, it's a poor outlook. You know, we've already seen that Rashford isn't a great number 9. You know, Rashford's better facing the goal. But if you think Rashford up front as a number 9 is going to work, then that's your opinion. But it's crazy to me. I'll be honest. You know, it is crazy. So what's the most important position in football? Difficult, really. I don't know. I think all positions are quite important. It depends how you see football. It depends, man. Sorry, guys. I'm just reading through some of the comments because, yeah, so Bellingham is an elite player due to the fact he starts and influences games for Real Madrid. I'm a Man U fan, but Real Madrid is the second biggest club in the world. And again, listen, everyone's free to their opinion, yeah, but I'm sorry, yeah, I have to say, niche fan, I mean, what you're coming out with, yeah, doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense. And again, it's low-level opinions, really, because he's an elite player because he starts and influences games. Okay? What games does he influence to Real Madrid? That's the first thing. And Real Madrid are the second biggest club in the world. So what does that mean? What's that got to do with Jude Bellingham being able to start for England? Like, the very fact here that you haven't told us what he does as an elite player from a technical aspect is why he shouldn't play in the first place. Because you're just coming out with passion quotes. And this is what Bellingham does. He's a passion merchant, and he's tapped into someone like you because you're now bringing it onto the channel without telling us, you know, why you think Bellingham should start from a technical aspect, because it's passion. And if you think passion wins you the World Cup, then I'm sorry, man. I'm not quite sure where you're getting that from. Goalkeeper is the important in the game. You should play without strikers, not goalkeepers. Okay, thanks for that. Bellingham is overrated, massively overrated. Again, it's funny because you get people coming on there saying stuff, and then they just end up disappearing, man. It's what it is. It's too you know what I mean? It's too, what's the word I'm looking for? It's too a technical talk for some people, as someone earlier has just shown. Gav, love the channel, but if we don't take or play Bellingham, we will bitterly regret it. Big up, man. Listen, I disagree. I disagree. But you know what I mean? What I want to say to you, yeah, is why are we going to regret it? Because I'm still waiting for someone to tell me why we're going to regret it. Why would we regret it? Because I'm all I want to find out is why you think Bellingham deserves to be there, based on like, what does he do that other players in his position can't do, apart from box crashing? So Rashford doing well in La Liga shows how poor the league is, even though he hasn't set the world alight. But again, Rashford was always going to do decent in La Liga because obviously he's got the physicality in terms of the pace in that league, you know. But yeah, it's mad. I'd have Rice over Bellingham all day. Yeah, but listen, Rice and Bellingham are two different players, but Rice for me is I'd have it. I think he's better than Bellingham. I do. He's better on the ball than Bellingham for me. He's more consistent than Bellingham. But again, they both play different roles, innit? But so Bellingham scores goals. Yeah, right. I'm laughing, man, because it's yeah, it's just some you know what it is. I like to have good conversations in terms of, you know, proper conversations about football, but you don't get that on here. And I mean, you only get that from a few people because Bellingham scores goals and that's his defense. You know what I mean? So let's just move past that, man. It's poor. So he has Ronaldo and Messi like game-changing aura. He and Rice pirate England's finest ambassadors. He's the perfect professional. Nish fan, are you Bellingham in disguise? Um, are you Bellingham in disguise? Again, bruv, Rice is a DMF, Bellingham is an AMF. And again, this just shows, yeah, the lack of understanding from Pewds, yeah? Pewds thinks Rice is a DMF, yeah, and Bellingham's an attacking midfielder. That's incorrect. It's incorrect. You know, Declan Rice, yeah, is a central midfielder, box to box, yeah? You've already seen at Arsenal, he can't play in the six. The number 6 is a defensive midfielder position, like what Busquets played, like what Rodri plays, Vitinha. Those are what you call DMFs. Declan Rice ain't that. He's a box-to-box midfielder who eventually, as he gets older, might even drop into centre-back. Yeah? Jude Bellingham is not an attacking midfielder, centre. He's not. He's not. He's someone that I would look at as a box-to-box midfielder in a 4-3-3. The very fact that we have to see Jude Bellingham playing as a number 10 is an absolute disgrace to football. I don't care what anyone says. So again, when you're saying Rice is a defensive midfielder and Bellingham's an attacking midfielder, you've got that incorrect, man. You've got that incorrect. Big up to Barbara Joseph each and every time for the super sticker. Yeah, listen, if Bellingham's your favourite player, then I can see your defence for him. You know, I can see it. And again, it's not about me trying to change your opinion or anything like that. But, you know, I think sometimes you need to be realistic in what you're saying and, you know, have a better defense than that. Because from what I'm seeing, it's just all words. It's all words. And, but again, man. Is Vitinha a CMF and João Neves a DMF? No, you got it the wrong way around. João Neves, you got it, Vitinha is a defensive midfielder and João Neves is a central midfielder. So you got it the wrong way around. Yeah, listen, Jude Bellingham, people can rate him, but not for me, man. Not for me. You know, he's the most overrated player in football today for me. 100%. I'd argue that with anyone. You know, and as I said, I'm still yet to see anyone tell me why they think he's a top player. You know, but it is what it is, man. It is what it is. Let's use stats. And this is where football's gone, guys, unfortunately. So we're going to go past that because we're not here to talk about stats. As soon as someone's using stats for an argument, it means that they can't really delve in too much to what we're talking about. So let's just ignore that. Yeah, big up, Iftikhar. Big up, man. Big up. Right, guys, we're going to wrap it up in a minute. So if you guys got any more questions on Jude Bellingham, if you think him or Trent should be in the England squad, get them in. And before we wrap up. So opinion on Vinny getting pocketed. Vinny, I mean, to be honest with you, Conor Bradley had a good game. He did against Vinicius Jr. But again, Vinicius Jr. for me, you know, he is he's someone for me that has dropped off a bit, And that's coincided with Mbappe coming. And I did say that. As soon as Mbappe arrived, I said Vinicius Jr. is not going to be the same player. And now you're seeing it, you know. I can't believe you don't want Bellingham. Unbelievable. Listen, you better believe it, man. The thing with me, what you have to realize about me, yeah, I'm not a sheep. I don't go with the majority opinion. I have my own opinion because I watch football. A lot of people don't really watch football and go with whatever the media say or what pundits say. You're never going to get me on this channel, you know, going with what the majority say or what the pundits say or the media. Because these guys are telling you a lie. That's what they're doing. Like, these guys don't delve into stuff like this, what I'm talking about. They just say what's ever popular. And again, if you're someone that is watching Sky Sports or, you know, you don't have your own opinion or your own mind. And again, I've never said anyone is not entitled to their own opinion. I've never said that. But when you're coming on my channel and you're saying certain things, like, it lets me know that you're either getting it from elsewhere or technically you don't really know what you're saying because you can't really explain what you're saying. That's what I mean, you know. But yeah, listen, it's not unbelievable for me because I watch football and I know football. So who would be your midfield for England? So if you're playing two in midfield and you're going to play the number 10, for me, the number 10 would be a Cole Potter, would be, you know what? I'd play Eze in the 10 because my team would be very different, yeah? I'd play Eze in the 10, Cole Palmer from the right, Jack Grealish from the left, and then my midfield 2 would be, as it stands right now, Adam Walton, and then choose between Elliot Anderson or Declan Rice. That'll be my midfield 2 right now, as it stands. As it stands right now, yeah. Opinion on CR7 winning the World Cup? Yeah, it's not going to happen. Not going to happen. If Portugal think that playing a 40-year-old Ronaldo, you know, through starting every game in the tournament is going to get them to the World Cup, they better think again. That's what I will tell you, you know, because, again, what people don't really want to realize, yeah, or take into account, if Ronaldo's playing for Portugal, they're going to have to play through Ronaldo, which is going to be a detriment to them. Because as great as Ronaldo has been, you don't play through a 40-year-old who's just going to be hell reliant on just getting numbers, getting goals. You know, they're going to need someone to contribute to the full game. And as we know, Ronaldo's not a natural striker anyway, and he's not going to contribute to the overall game for Portugal. He's going to be someone that's going to be playing more or less on the periphery, hoping to get a goal. Now, if Portugal play up against the best teams, you'll find out very quickly why Ronaldo is going to be redundant in them games. So if you think CR7 wins a World Cup with Portugal, with him playing a key role, for me, it's not going to happen as I've just explained. So, listen, if you think Jude's world-class, then good for you, man. As I said, I don't, nowhere near world-class, and that's it, man. And look, he's Zidane-esque, yeah. You know what it is, Niche fan. I know you're trolling, man. As soon as you said Zidane-esque, you're trolling, man. You're trolling. Let's not go into this anymore, man. I think Eze should be in the number 10. Yeah, listen. But again, you've got Eze, you've got Rodgers, you've got Grealish. There's so many options that can play the 10 better than Jude Bellingham. This is what I'm trying to tell you. So for me, as I said, there's even players that I like that I'm leaving out. You know, Foden. Again, I did say Foden's got a lot to do to get in the squad, but he's playing more of an 8 now. You know, you've got Morgan Rodgers, who I like as well. But for me, Grealish has to definitely be in that lineup. Eze and Cole Palmer. So I'll go with those 3. Cole Palmer from the right, Eze in the 10, Grealish on the left. and then Harry Kane up top. That's how I would go. But we know he's not going to do that. You know. Bellingham and Trent was awful yesterday. But what's new? They're awful every week. But people don't care because football now has become about numbers. And if you only care about numbers, you know, you're not going to care how Bellingham and Trent played. Trent's a bit different because he's a defender. But Bellingham's a prime example. Prime example. He plays poor every week, more or less. But then he gets numbers or an assist to hide the performance. And that goes for a lot of players. He isn't the only one, you know. Listen, if Ronaldo gets brought on as an impact sub, that's the way Portugal should be going. If he's come on as an impact sub, you know, that'd be better for Portugal. But Ronaldo's the captain, you know, he's their biggest name. He's one of the biggest names in football. They're going to shoehorn him into this team because who's their manager? Is it Roberto Martinez? He ain't going to have the balls to drop Ronaldo. He's not. So, Ronaldo's going to play games, man. He is. No Saka. Yeah, listen, Saka wouldn't start for me for England. No way. Like, Saka would nowhere near start for England. You think Saka's better than Cole Palmer? Hell no. Hell no. Hell no. Like, Saka is just a good player, man. But the way fans talk about Saka, it's like Saka's Yamal or he's Elise. He's nowhere near it, man. He's just a good player. That's it. But he doesn't start for me for England. Nowhere near. Cole Palmer plays for me on that right-hand side. Gav, you want to play Grealish? We have Gordon or Rashford who are much better. What, bro? Listen, let me tell you this now. Yeah, if you think Anthony Gordon and Marcus Rashford are better players than Jack Grealish, then we're in the wrong sport. And that's what I'm going to say about that, because that has to be one of the worst comments I've seen. Big up yourself, but if you think Gordon and Rashford are better than Grealish, then football's well and truly in the bin, man. Well and truly in the bin. I think people only would play Rashford and Gordon because of pace. And the fact that we're talking about pace over a true technician is what's wrong in football. You know, pace should be used as a bonus, yeah? Not as the main thing. You know, pace for me should be used from the bench. You know, if the game's not going the right way and you want to change things up, then you bring on pace. But to say that Gordon and Rashford are better than Grealish, yeah, listen, let's move on, man. So Bayern Munich and Arsenal are the dark horse for the Champions League this season. I disagree, man. I disagree. I guarantee you both teams don't win it. I guarantee you. I think don't put too much emphasis on this group stage right now, because the main thing is just qualifying for the round of 16, you know. So yeah, I wouldn't put too much emphasis on that. But I can tell you this for free. Both of them for me don't win it. Both of them. They won't win it. You know, I'm still gonna say PSG, Barcelona. Those two for me are the two that I still see definitely making the semi-final or the finals. You know, it's early days, especially in the Champions League right now. You know what, four games in, you know, a lot of things can change. Injuries, you know, Barca got injuries right now. PSG looking like they've lost Hakimi and Dembele. I'm not sure how long for, but football can change. So, yeah, there's nothing to bank on it right now. But those two teams, Bayern and Arsenal, there's no doubt in that both teams have started well. You know, they're the top two at the moment, you know, both on 12 points. But that doesn't mean that they're going to win it. Not for me. Bro, big up to Eric Gomez. You're sleeping on Bowen. Again, Bowen's another one. I rate Bowen highly. I think Bowen, for me, you know, he doesn't get talked about as much because he's at West Ham, who are struggling at the bottom of the table. But Bowen will be in the squad, you know, and Bowen has a right to be over Saka as well. It's not going to happen, but Yeah, Bowen's another one. Phil Foden, I'm a big fan of as well. But Foden, for me, has a difficult task to get into the squad because of where he plays and the amount of players that he's vying for in that position. So, but yeah, they're two very good players. Pewds, if you're bored, man, then you're not forced to be here. Off you go, man. You're not forced to be here. You know what I mean? Saka is more of a complete player than Palmer. Yeah, let's move on, man. Let's move on. Yeah, listen, sometimes, man, we just ignore some of these chats because, yeah, it's crazy, man. Gav, Grealish is at Everton, Gordon's at Newcastle, and Rashford at Barca. What does that mean? All right, cool, man. Grealish is old now. Yeah, all right. Portugal or Spain for the World Cup 2026, Gav? For me, my favourites for the World Cup are France, Spain, and then I think you can't rule out one of the South American teams. I know Brazil haven't been the Brazil that I'm used to seeing. Argentina, obviously, Messi's a year older now, and they've lost obviously some key players. But I think you can't rule them out. But I'm gonna say France or Spain will be the front runners. But again, man, I'm looking forward to the World Cup because I've got a feeling there'll be a lot of upsets. So, opinion on Messi winning the World Cup of Argentina. Again, Messi, one of my favorite ever players. But I can't see them retaining the World Cup because Messi's a year older. His quality will never leave him, but I think it'll be tough for him to replicate what he replicated at the last World Cup. But the fact that he's got one, he's completed football, man. That's it. I'm just hoping for France. Yeah, I just hope that Pogba gets back playing, and he's in that World Cup squad. That's what I hope, man. Because a fit Pogba, a confident Pogba, he's a game changer for France. If he can prove his, what they're doing. They're joint second, I believe, in the Liga. I think they might be at a point behind PSG. Champions League, they're doing well. If you add a Paul Pogba to that, listen, if he gets back playing, he's a game changer for France. So, yeah, man. Nah, listen, Bayern and Arsenal won't win the Champions League for me, man. I'm just being honest. Like when I say an opinion, I very rarely change my mind because I don't just say things for the sake of it. So again, Bayern and Arsenal at this moment in time, you can say they're two of the top teams at the moment, performing in the Champions League. But there's a long way to go, man. The main thing is getting through to the round of 16. But when it comes to those teams playing, the likes of a Barca, the likes of a PSG, maybe a Liverpool, Man City, them teams over two legs, this is when you're going to see what's really going on. So again, it's too early to say. Gav, can we win the World Cup? I think Cameroon have a good shout though. Listen, yeah, Cameroon for me won't win the World Cup, so I don't think that's going to happen. And can we win the World Cup? I don't know who's we. If you're talking about England, any team has a chance really of winning the World Cup. What the top teams anyway. But if you're talking about England, do I think England can win the World Cup? Not for me. Not for me. And then, guys, we're going to wrap it up because I've just seen a comment, that when it all comes crashing down, we're going to be here. So Arsenal to win the quadruple this season. So Arsenal can't even win a single trophy, but yet we're meant to believe that they're going to win the quadruple. This is what we're dealing with. They can't even win a single trophy, but yet quadruples on their mind. Yeah. Listen, I'm telling you this now. Crystal Palace beat them in the Carabao Cup. Yeah? Crystal Palace beat them. Gav, you're English. Back our team. I can back who I want, man. And again, I have background from France. So France is my team. So, yeah, listen. I am English, but I can back who I want, man. And my team's always been France. So, it is what it is, man. So, that's the brilliance of life, man. You have your own opinion. You know what I mean? That's the brilliance of life. That's the brilliance of life. But guys, listen up. Big up yourselves for coming on. You know, some good debates there. Again, some of you, I'm still waiting for this. Why is Jude Bellingham elite? And no one's told me yet why he's elite. So the facts are he's not elite. Which, you know, those of us that just watch football rather than being influenced by being influenced by outside people or the media, we know that Benham's not world class. You're the most English sounding Frenchman I've ever heard in my life. But I didn't say I was French. I said I have French in my background. So my surname's French as well. So yeah, but listen, yeah, France is my team, and that's just how it is. You know, that's it, man. You know what I mean? But yeah, guys, listen up. Big up yourselves for coming on. Make sure you smash the like button on the way out. We got 11 likes at the moment. Big up to Fitz, man. Big up each and every time, Fitz. So yeah, as I said, make sure you smash the like button on the way out, and make sure you sub to the channel if you're new as well. If you've enjoyed the content, again, this is free content, guys. You won't be getting much content like this on other channels because over here, you know, we don't pull any punches, man. We just tell the truth. And unfortunately, the truth is the uncomfortable conversations that many don't want to have, you know. So it is what it is, you know. But I said, if you've enjoyed the content, smash the like button and sub to the channel. And again, make sure you share the channel as well. And I was meant to be doing a watch along tonight for the Champions League games, but I remember I got boxing, so I can't even do it. So yeah, that was poor on my part. But yeah, so should be back tomorrow. Should be back tomorrow, same time, 12:30. But if not, then I'll try and give you guys an evening stream if I can. But Friday, you know, we're going to do the match preview, Manchester United against Tottenham, see how both teams line up. So, yeah, some content coming your way, guys. So, yeah, is what it is. But as I said, big up yourselves, smash the like button, sub to the channel, big up to all the mods as well. And yeah, I'll catch you guys in a bit. Take it easy.